Hey guys, it's Splinterverse here. Today we're going to be talking about the top 20 Megabomb cards for playing in Corinth format of Hex Shards of Fate. Megabombs are better than your average bomb. You know, a bomb is a card that comes out and it's a major threat. It can win the game for you. It could be even your win condition. But we're talking about Megabombs, cards that when they come out, there's a good chance you should just concede. And so we've got 20 of them for you. They're exclusively for Corinth. They may or may not be Megabombs in other formats, but we want to know your thoughts, and we're going to present them to you in no particular order. So we're starting here with Army of Myth. This does require a lot of thresholds to play this, but it is good because you can summon X random unique troops. So unique means that it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, that you could duplicate some of them, etc. But unique troops are usually very good. That's why they're unique. This is also a legendary card, so it's one of the more valuable cards to have. It does cost double X, so you can't just, if you have 10 resources, you can't just summon 10, right? You've got to spend 3 to cast it. Then you can use your leftover 7, so cut that down to 6. So you could really only summon 3, because you have to have an even number, because you have to fill in this, so it'd be 3, 3, 3. But if you get this card in your pull, when you activate the Corinth charge power, I'd definitely go for it. So that's our first of our Megabombs. Let's look at the next one. Briar Patch. This is an unassuming 1-drop for Wild here, but it is deadly. So you create 4 Briar Legions, which will show you what those look like in a second, and you put those into your deck, and then when you draw one, which is frequent in Corinth, you're going to create another one and put it into your deck. So a Briar Legion looks like this, and it basically gets +2/+2 every time it enters play. So if you play a bunch of these and they only cost 3, regardless of how big they are, you're going to have some 10/10s, some 12/12s, etc. that cost 3. And the beauty is unlike things like Pocket Army, the values of these stay. Pocket Army depends on how many are actually in play at the moment that you create the Pocket Army. Briar Legion, you could have them all dead except for one and play this, and it could be a 12/12. So this cost is really low. It's definitely a Megabomb. Alright, let's look at the next card. It is Citadel of Adept. This card is phenomenal. It just can come in and change the game so quickly, and it's really hard to overcome it if you're battling it. Like I said, you may have to concede if you come up against it. And the beauty is if you've been able to play this, that means when you draw it again, you can play it again and again and again. So it creates 4 castle walls. These are big defenders. They can take up to 5 damage, dying when they get to 5, but anything up to that they won't die. And then burning oils, which work in conjunction with the castle walls. Basically, you can sacrifice them when something is being blocked by your castle wall, and whatever it is will get -2/-2. So if a 5/5 was coming at your 0/5 castle wall, it would actually go down to a 3/3 and not destroy the castle wall, and that's permanent. It loses the -2/-2 forever. So basically ground troops are grounded, not able to get through when you have this going on. So definitely good. And what's nice is you're sacrificing this, right? So then this is also going to go back into your deck and be replayable in Corinth format. Now looking at the sniper towers, these are my favorite. They have Sky Guard, so they can block flyers on the opposing side. They are defensive, so they can't attack, but that's okay. They have 0 attack value. But what's beautiful is you can tap them to do 2 damage to a target champion or troop with flight. So you can hit the opponent directly, or you can hit those troops with flight. So this, all it takes is a couple of these to take out a 4/4 flyer. And most flyers are not very high on the defense because they have that flight ability. So they need to have a way to be removed. So this can really ruin your opponent's good time over there. And again, when you play this over and over, you're just your second time you're going to have, if you haven't lost any, you're going to have 8 castle walls, 6 burning oils, 4 sniper tours, and a partridge in a pear tree. All right. So definitely get this card if you see it in your charge power, unless you see another Megabomb that's just as good, but I don't know. I think this is one of the best ones there is. Okay, the next one on the list is Clutch of Deandra. Alright, so this card is kind of mean, let's admit it. You're going to probably use it for the bottom one here. Each opposing champion discards 4 cards. Now in other formats that's not as bad, because maybe you have 7 cards or 8 cards or 10 cards in your hand, but in Corinth most of the time you only have 4. So when you play this on your turn, what you're saying is, hey opponent, next turn you're not going to be able to do anything. You're not going to be able to activate your charge power. You're not going to be able to play any cards because your whole hand is going to be in your crypt, and you're going to have to wait till the end of the turn to refresh your hand. So you're basically only going to be able to attack or activate powers that you have on the battlefield. Very mean, but like I said, this is a Megabomb. You start getting hit with this, you might want to concede. And if you can play it, you're probably going to win. One of my favorite cards is up next. It's called Double Down. This card, it is expensive. It is 7, but it doubles your health and it doubles the attack and defense of every troop you control. That's huge. You know, just a Candlekin going from 1/1 to 2/2. And then you double your health on top of it. I mean, you can't beat that. Now imagine that with a 7/7 creature, it becomes a 14/14, right? So everywhere in between, this card is good. And even if you have, let's say you have 10 health, you've now doubled it to 20, right? So even at the end of the game it can be great. Now the doubling of the health isn't that great if you're at 4, but even still, I take 8 over 4 any day, and it's going to double whatever you have on the ground. So grab this if you can when you're using that Corinth charge power. Alright, scrolling down here, we've got Drowned Shrine of Ulthar. This card is deadly, and I don't recommend playing it unless you want a really miserable time. It can win you the game though, as a Megabomb, because it will change the game. So what it says here is champions can't draw more than 1 card per turn. So what that means is at the end of your turn in Corinth, when you're supposed to refill your hand with 4 cards, it's only going to let you bring 1 in. And if it's not a resource, that means you can't activate your charge power. You can only play what you've got in your hand. Hopefully you have the resources for it. It's really going to ruin your time. So the only way you'd want to play this is if you have cards that are in your deck that are below your maximum threshold amount, to where every time you draw, you know you're going to be able to play it. You know, let's say you have 5 resources and you play this, and you have a 7-drop in your deck. You may or may not ever get to play that 7-drop, because it depends on that one card being a resource 2 more times. So 2 whole turns you have to get a resource off to be able to do that. So it can really ruin your game, but it can also win you the game. I've had opponents play this and they didn't realize what was going to happen, and they just didn't plan very well, and their cards weren't that great, and mine were good enough that with the existing resources I had, I was able to overcome and beat them. So don't advise necessarily playing this unless you have a plan in mind, but it's definitely something to watch out for, because it is a Megabomb. It's going to ruin the game one way or the other. Either hopefully in your favor. This is one of my favorites as well. It's another wild card, Eye of Winter. When you draw a card, you gain a permanent resource. That is huge. If you recognize that at the end of every turn you're going to refill your hand with 4 cards, so that means 4 permanent resources added to your total resources every single turn. I have played this in the face of damage. I mean, I could have put down a blocker. I played this instead, because I know that over time I'm going to have 58 resources, and my opponent's going to be on 6, 7, 8, something like that, and it's just going to get out of control. I'll be able to cast my entire hand every turn after just a few turns with this, maybe even after the first turn with this, depending on where we are in the game. So definitely go for this if you can get it. Yeah, it can get removed, but by the time this gets removed, it's too late. You've got 58 resources or something crazy. So go for this card if you can, and you will more than likely win the game. A lot of times, you know, it's over if you're versing this. Forbidden Toneseeker, love this card. I hate facing it, but if I have it on my side, I'm always happy. This is another one like that last card we looked at. It will buff whatever troop this shift power is on, +1/+1 for every card you draw. So that means minimum every turn you're going to add 4 and 4 to a given troop. It can be this one if you don't have another troop to shift it onto. I would shift it onto a flyer or an unblockable, a life drain, a lethal, some troop like that if you can. If not, leave it on this guy. Once you have shifted it off, look for an opportunity to revert this card and then get a second copy of this going and really building up those troops. Now if you leave it on this guy, he only costs 2, so if he gets removed you can bring him back. The problem with this guy, if you don't give him flight or unblockable or lethal or swift strike or something, is he can just be blocked over and over, and or crush would be great on this guy, and then the damage isn't getting through. That's why I like shifting it off. But just keep in mind, if you shift it off to something with a higher cost, you have to be able to replay that later easily. Alright, so definitely watch out for this card. And I would really also say, if you're going up against this, I mean, there's a good chance you're going to lose, so you consider whether you want to stay in the match at that point. This one, it seems funny to include this, but it lets people ramp so fast. I mean, Genesis Pool Naiad is crazy. I mean, you can play an additional resource on each of your turns. It costs 2 to bring this out, so you can bring it out early. And since your hand is, especially early, going to be filled with resources, most of the time you're going to have 2 to 3 to 4 resources, especially in those early turns. So you're going to be able to dump half your hand, double your resource gain, and get those thresholds up way above your opponent. So it seems silly, it's just a 1/1, so it can be removed, but I'm telling you, if you don't take care of this when it's on the opponent's side, you're going to lose. Another awesome card, Ozawa Cosmic Elder. So this is a life drain Coyote. It has +X, where X is your health. So if your health is 14, he's a 14/14 life drain, and then when he either takes damage from an attacking troop, or he does damage as an attacking troop, you are gaining whatever that is. So if you're 14/14, you're going to gain 14, and then he's going to be buffed. So it's just this endless cycle. So if you don't have access to ready removal, the opponent is going to run away with this and get their life way high to where it's just insurmountable. Now you might be able to beat them through running out of time if they've been slow to play or something like that, but I mean, if you see this and you don't have removal in your deck, you might want to concede, or just try your best, keep going, see what you can do. Maybe something will surprise you, maybe be able to avoid this or something, but you just got to hope that your opponent doesn't have 500 life by the time you do that. And then you add crush or something to this, and then look out, it's definitely over. Next is Pack Raptor. It's a 1-drop Megabomb. Okay, keep that in mind. This is why some people go wild first, is they're trying to get this, because this is really difficult to overcome. The challenge with this is that it's got Swift Strike, and it's creating 4 copies of itself and putting them into the deck, and then it has +1/+1 for each one you control. Now the good news is it only is buffed based on what's on the board, so it can't be too huge if you only have 1 Pack Raptor out there, but it keeps creating them every time it's played. And when you have a deck that is pretty much 16 cards when you have cards in hand, it's going to get out of hand pretty quickly, because the odds of drawing 1 out of 4, because you add 4 and now it's a 20 card deck, so 4 out of 20 chance there that you're going to draw a Pack Raptor, and then when you play one, it's just going to add another 4, and then pretty soon you're drawing handfuls of Pack Raptors, and they're easy to play because they're only 1. So it's not uncommon for people to just concede against this. It just snowballs out of control. In a 60 card deck, this isn't that bad, right? Because now you've put 4 copies into a 60 card deck, and it's, what, you got 1 out of 56 chance that you're going to draw it, or 4 out of 56 or whatever. So it's not horrible, but in Corinth it is a mega bomb. Alright, scrolling down, Pipa Pal, kind of like that Naiad we looked at earlier. You can play an additional resource on each of your turns. That is so good. You know, you want to be able to play those resources not only to get more resources to spend, but to get more shards, right? You can have, and thresholds. You can have, you know, wild. You can have sapphire. You can have all the colors if you're playing multiple cards per turn. And the beauty is when you go to access that charge power, it's basing it on what your thresholds are. So if you have Pipa Pal out on the board at the beginning of your turn and you play a sapphire and a ruby, you're basically going to go into that charge power with a sapphire and ruby in the mix. Maybe you didn't have one of those, right? So now you've got both. You've got, maybe you have double sapphire now and you have ruby on the board as just one deep in the threshold. So now your pool is bigger of cards that you can get. Then the bonus on this Pipa Pal is that you can spend 7 repeatedly on your turn to transform target troop you control into a random wild troop with cost 7 or greater. Anything 7 or greater that's a wild troop is good. I mean, you're guaranteed to transform it into something good. So you really can't fail with that. Take your little 1/1 Candlekin and transform it into a awesome card that's 7. It might even be transformed into a Megabomb or a Game Changer, which we'll be talking about in another video soon. And another bonus is the Naiad was only 1/1, right? This is 1/4, so it can block things if you need to. You obviously don't want this to die, but if you absolutely have to, you can block some things. It is a little bit pricier than the Naiad, but not much. I mean, 3 is really low, and it only requires that 1 threshold. So definitely watch out for Pipa Pal and grab it if you can when you use your Corinth charge power. Another Megabomb is Replica 4000. This little robot is deadly. He does damage to the champion, and then sacrifices himself and creates 2 copies. And when he comes into play, he gets 2 random boons. So he could get speed, he could get swift strike, flight, whatever, right? If he gets flight or crush or speed, those can be deadly. So you're looking for one of those 3 to come into play when you play him, because that's going to increase the likelihood that he's going to get through to the other champion and replicate himself. And then once that happens, you have a minimum of 3 Replica 4000s in your deck, 3 copies of that card, unless one of them gets voided or something like that. And then that becomes even more unlikely for the opponent to be able to overcome that. Now, you could have massive 10/10 creatures on your side or whatever, but to prevent the Replica from getting in. But eventually, it's going to get some sort of boon that is going to make it unstoppable. It could have rage, it could have whatever. And keep in mind, when it sacks itself and it goes into the crypt and comes back, it still has, let's say it had flight and rage. It's going to come back out and get 2 more. And now it could be repeats of the one it has, but it could be new ones. It could get lethal, it could get swift strike, it could get something equally awesome. So these things are brutal. The best you can hope for is when you see it on the opposing side that you have a light of day or some other void option to void it, get it off the board. You got to try to take care of it. Even a crackling rot can ruin this, so that it cannot get to you. But if it does, it's over. The next one is incredibly annoying. I played against it yesterday and I conceded. I couldn't take it anymore. So this card, the opponent kept playing it like every turn. What it is it's an action that causes each champion to have to choose an artifact, constant, and troop they control, and then they put them into their hands, and then they get this ability called Portal. So because it's basic, my opponent was playing it on his turn. So what was happening is anything I'd have on the board that was good, like a Bride of the Damned or a Replica or whatever, he would play this. I'd have to pick it up, and then it would get Portal, so that when my turn started, it would now transform into something not as great. And then I had the choice of, do I wait for the Portal to come back around and come back into my hand and transform into something better, or do I play whatever it's turned into, even if it's not that great. And you just keep doing this, and not only are you screwing with the plans of your opponent, you're really preventing them from doing anything, because you're doing it again on their turn, or on your turn. So by the time they get to their turn, it's just a wreck, right? They can't even count on whatever they have in their hand to stay as what it is, and it just really ruins the day. It's frustrating for them. It gets that agitation going, which can also lead to a loss, right? When you start getting emotional as opposed to just logical, you can lose the game more quickly. So watch out for this card. Hopefully, if you see it, it's in your hand and not theirs. Next one, Skitter of the Arachnid. So this first part, this little ability next to the blood symbol, you can ignore that. It's rarely going to happen. It might if you have a Venom, but that's not what this card is about. And I think a lot of people skip this card because they see this first part and they don't read the rest of it. The rest of it is where it gets really good. Create eight spiderling eggs for each opposing champion and put it into the deck for 3. So on turn 3, your opponent maybe has 18 cards in their Corinth deck, and you're going to go and put 8 in there. You've basically got like a 1/3 chance, roughly, of getting a spider for every card drawn, and then they're going to draw 4. I've played this before and had the very first turn that the opponent drew 4. They created 4 spiders out of the 8. So deadly, and if you keep playing this over and over, eventually they're going to have this massive deck, and it's just going to be all spiders. And as you know, spiderlings are unblockable, so you get enough of those on the board, you can just swing and kill the opponent easily. So watch out for this. Don't be fooled by this top part. Alright, moving on to the next one, Sliver of the Immortal Spear. If you've watched the videos on this channel, you'll see at one point there's a game where I won with this. It is not so fun. It's kind of a cheating way to win, even though it's technically legal. This card is not that great in a 60 card deck, because your odds of getting another Immortal Spear and getting to 5 of them, because you need 5. So let's just read it here. Tap it or exhaust it to create a Sliver of Immortal Spear and put it into your deck. So it's creating a copy of itself. And then when you get 5 in play, and they only cost 2, you can exhaust 5 of them to deal 5,000 damage to target champion. Nobody can survive 5,000 damage unless you have something like a quick spell that'll say, if you were to die this turn, put your health at 10 instead, or something like that. I think there is one card in the game like that. But anyway, all you need is 5 of these, and the odds of drawing 5 of these when your deck is so small, your starting deck in this format is 20 cards, guys. So really easy to get this. It's kind of a feels bad win. I have defeated this, but I had to do artifact removal. I had to do transformations. Play a card that transforms everything on their side into some other troop or some other item. Stuff like that to get around it. I got lucky. If you see this, you better quickly kill your opponent, or you're gonna die. Alright, next is Sugarpuss. Sugarpuss is awesome. He's only 2, and every time you play anything greater than 2, or whatever his rowdy cost gets up to, you're going to create 3 random dandy candies and put them into your deck. I don't remember off the top of my head what they do, but I think it's like create random actions, create random troops, give yourself a lot of health, draw a bunch of extra cards. I mean, they're X cost cards. A lot of these are, pay X and create X troops. I mean, just crazy good things. And with such a small deck, in Corinth, you're gonna draw those dandy candies, and if he creates it more than once, I mean, it's pretty much over. You might be able to beat it if he only creates 3, but still, it's going to be an uphill battle. So you got to take this out immediately, void it, whatever, or hope that if it's on the board, it's on your side and not theirs. All right, 3 more to go here. The Kraken. So the Kraken, as it enters play, And it's not easy. It's one of those where you really need 3 in Sapphire to get it. It's 8, but as it enters play, it summons 8 Kraken's tentacles. We'll look at those in a minute. When the Kraken leaves play, void all Kraken tentacles you control, and the Kraken has +1/+1 for each Kraken's tentacle you control. So if you start, you summon 8. This is gonna be an 8/8, and it'll only go down as you lose Kraken's tentacles. So what do the Kraken's tentacles do? They are 1-drop creatures that when you tap them, you can exhaust any target troop. And with 8 of those, you can basically tap down 8 of the opponent's creatures. That's pretty good, right? Being able to tap down 8. Now, so removing this should void all of them, but I will warn you, I did play against this, and I played a card, I think it was either Assimilate or Subsume or some card that put this Kraken into my deck, and the tentacles remained on my opponent's side, so it was busted, which is really unfortunate because it says when the Kraken leaves play, so that means leaves play and goes anywhere. Goes in the deck, goes in the crypt, goes in the hand. It should void all of those tentacles, but there is some bug in the game where if you put it in your deck, you will not void all of those tentacles. And those tentacles, I mean, those can win the game so easily, especially because they can die and come back in this format. Even if they, even if the Kraken is still up, they can die and come back. They're only voided if he leaves play. I'm assuming through going into the crypt, going into the hand, but definitely not going into some other champion's deck, because I found that out the hard way. I lost that game. It was sad because I felt like the opponent won through a bug, not through skill. All right, the second to last here, Waltz of the Damned. So this card is awesome. You basically, let's say you have 3-4 troops on the board. They have 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And you have some troops on your side that you can attack in with, and they won't kill anything, or they'll attack in and they will do damage like a flyer, and your opponent has no flyers. You want to go ahead and attack with those. What you want to make sure you do is that you don't kill anything on their side, because once you play this card, what's going to happen is all the cards in play are going to come into your crypt. Well, they're going to come to your battlefield side, and then you're going to sacrifice them all, and they're going to go to your crypt. And then at the end of your turn, they're going to be shuffled into your deck. So you basically stolen all of the troops on the opposing side. And this can be brutal. I've had games where myself and the opponent both had this card. I've had games where I was the only one with this one, or I went against it, and it's brutal. If you can get this, you want to get it, and it's another reason to go double blood. And interestingly, I think this is the Vampire Queen portrait here. So love this card. Check it out. One last one, Wildlife. So here's another X cost card. This one's the best out of all of the summon the random troops. Although I guess the first one, Army of Myth, can be too, but because it's focusing on unique, and unique are typically good. But this one, what I like about it is it's just double X. There's no additional cost, and not only are you summoning X random troops, wild troops, you're summoning cost X. So if I had 14 resources, I could summon 7 random wild troops that were cost 7. So that means they're going to be good. There's very few that it costs 7 that are not good. I guess the advantage Armies of Myth has is it's all shards, not just wild. But I mean, this can get out of hand real quickly. It's another reason to go into double wild. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Those are the top 20 mega bombs. Again, these are better than the average bomb, and they are cards you should definitely go for in your charge power. And if you look at the numbers here, if we sort them by shard, you can see that you've got 3 artifacts, got a couple in diamond, you've got a couple in blood there, you've got quite a few mixtures, got 2 in sapphire, and then 6 in wild. So the mega bombs are mostly in wild, and in some cases there are 3 prismatic ones that are in wild. So definitely worth going into wild if you're looking for those mega bombs. That's why it's my second favorite color to go into, because I like to get my removal from blood first, and then try to venture into wild and get those. The good news is that out of these, there's only one that requires double, and in the wild, and there's one in the blood that requires double. So let me know in the comments, guys, what you think some mega bombs are that maybe I missed. But also check out the Game Changers video, which is coming up soon, because maybe I didn't think it was a mega bomb. I thought it was a game changer, and I'll explain what game changers are in that video as compared to mega bombs. But also, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. And let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in a match. Happy hexing.